Thank you very much, gentlemen. I am hanging out here with TSM's mid laner, BJERGSEN himself. You guys have just clinched the first seed in the playoffs, first place throughout regular split play in Spring Split 2017. How are you feeling?
Of course, it feels good to be first. That was our goal, and I wouldn't be happy if we weren't first place. Second is not something I'd be satisfied with, but overall, we're still playing pretty inconsistent, and we're going to have to fix those issues to do well at playoffs. So still looking forward and wanting to win the split, not just the regular season.
Now, speaking of those inconsistencies, you had a pretty strong series today against Phoenix 1, especially in the first game. Yesterday, a surprising result in your match against Team Liquid. What is TSM looking to do as a team, as a unit, to fix those problems and just become an unstoppable force in the postseason?
I mean, there's no secret. It's just grinding out. Now we're going to have, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks to really work on our issues. And I think there's certain things that come up all the games that we do lose, or the game ones, the dreaded game ones, so we mess up. It's a lot of similar problems. We gave up some free dragons, free barons that happened against Team Liquid, even happened against Phoenix 1 in this game. And those are some things that we just have to fix to do well at playoffs and MSI if we end up going.
So with those goals, obviously you guys have in mind what you need to be fixing, what you need to be working on, what your game plan is. And right now, when I look up at the back of the stage up here, there are a lot of TSM banners. I'm taking it you guys are planning on adding another one to that at the end of Spring Split 2017 here.
I mean, yeah, no doubt. TSM is all about winning. I wouldn't be satisfied if we didn't get first place, so we're going to get first place.
Well, best of luck to you and the rest of the TSM guys as we head into the playoffs. TSM, ladies and gentlemen, clinching the #1 seed. We're going to go ahead and throw things back to the analyst desk now to see what they make of it all.
Thank you, Captain Flowers. Some confidence out of BJERGSEN there after securing first place in the regular season. 2-0 fashion over our third place team. And I think, you know, at the outset, that's the most important thing to recognize. Having sustained a loss to the 9th place team yesterday, we wanted to see TSM bounce back and in somewhat dominant fashion. Getting a 2-0 here serves to calm some nerves maybe for any worrying fans out there.
Yeah, I mean, TSM fans tend to react a little over the top when something doesn't quite go perfectly. I think, you know, you can see after this series that they're still a really dominant team.
Right.
They always had that risk of losing a game 3. It finally happened at the very end of the season, but nothing to worry about. They're still, I think, quite clearly the top team in the league.
All right, before we talk about the postseason, playoff picture, and all that as a result of this series, let's dive into this game 2 real quick. Let's take a look, working backwards through the game. 29 minutes. This is really the game-ending fight to a degree. TSM going to get 4-0 plus an inhib off of it.
Right, this is right after they grab that Baron buff, and you see that P1 wants to move quickly and make a fight happen before they give up a lot of resources, give up a lot of that gold. They try for it, but INORI gets blown up really early on in the fight, and then it's a really good kind of front-to-back team fight for TSM.
Aggressive WILDTURTLE here.
I was about to say, front-to-back for the most part. Turtle decides he wants to be on the back line of the enemy team, but he's able to do so because there's not that much threat, and he has a really good dive comp to go with him, obviously. Vladimir doesn't want to just be hitting front line the entire time. He wants to find that opportunity to go in.
I can't help but point out that that was a flashing forward WILDTURTLE. On
it's
TSM,
not always bad.
On TSM, and it worked. No, I love to see. I love aggressive flashes, just personally as a player. But it's good to see him, you know, taking those kind of stabs and leaps. And see, hey, we saw Kalista play today. What do you think of the Kalista, just real briefly?
Some people have been trying to tell me it's really good. I think it's okay. It's playable in the meta, and especially when you see a lot of 80 carry bans, which were thrown that way because they were taken in the second rotation after the Lucian had been taken away. Ezreal was already banned, so you see these other bans come in, and it's something that he was forced onto. I don't think he would want to take that. And it's situationally fine.
You're not lunging at it.
No.
But they made it work this time around. Let's take a look at another fight. Only 3 minutes before that one that you just saw. Baron here, 4-for-1 plus Baron for TSM.
There have been a lot of fights forced around the mid lane. BJERGSEN playing very aggressive over the course of this whole game. Once again, HAUNTZER, nice hook to blow up Ryu right at the start of the fight. That was the problem, was Ryu was super shut down this game, and it's really hard to win from there. P1 almost make a good opportunity at turning this back because TSM was not on the terrace. But BIOFROST snipes out INORI. Huge hook there because if Shen comes in from the backside with his 4-man taunt and INORI's not almost already dead, maybe he's able to go in and start getting a couple kills. Instead, INORI dies right at the start of the fight as well. Arrow's doing his best to try and maximize his damage, but it's just a little too late. WILDTURTLE finally shows back up, is able to help get BIOFROST onto Arrow. That lets him finish him down. A nice snipe over the wall here.
Great.
Yeah, good final shot by
This is without the vision toggled. Technically, he couldn't see where he was, had an idea of where he was, but throws it blind, secures that kill. And ultimate 4-for-0 with the Baron. The Baron then went into the inhib, and we saw TSM, again, always operating comfortably from a lead. But if there was going to be a criticism from their regular season, it's that sometimes they can't establish those leads, and particularly in game ones, they have the potential to lose them because they don't start so hot.
Yeah, and you saw them playing very heavily around mid and top over the course of the series. Game 1, Turtle did kind of get crushed in just standard laning phase. Good bounce back game too, especially given that he was targeted a little bit more in the pick ban phase. So it's good to see that Turtle isn't just going to be this complete liability in the playoffs, and that's what a lot of people are concerned about, given how we've seen kind of the final weeks shape up. But Arrow not having the best day overall.
No, we heard the casters talking about that a little bit. How does this bode for his MVP votes? And I want to discuss that in just a moment. Before we get to that, though, let's talk about Phoenix One and their approach to this series in particular as a whole. Because as was stated at the beginning of the day, this series had no effect for Phoenix One, right? In the sense that they finished third no matter what. Now, of course, it could have determined who they might be playing later in the playoffs. But they opted to try INORI in both games and SHADY in both games, so still experimenting with that roster.
And I liked what I saw out of INORI this series. He wasn't being hyper-aggressive. It was more reacting to TSM plays. We see him turn an overdive by an aggressive BJERGSEN in the mid lane, turns a dive there by SVENSKEREN, and then once again here being able to punish TSM, clearly having a game plan of wanting to focus more around the mid lane. And overall, it was nice to see that out of him, but the rest of the team didn't quite seem up to par.
Right.
The early, ban influence that they threw at Turtle did not stop him from having a decent game. And I mean, not like INORI played perfectly either. He did walk up and get hooked in that important skirmish around the mid lane, but that was a pretty good performance to see out of him.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like he had a pretty good sense of where SVENSKEREN was going to be, right? Showing up, being in the right place, right time. In the support position, though, that's where I come away from the series, and I feel like I have no sense of which is the better support player on Phoenix One and who should be played through the playoffs alongside Arrow.
It kind of feels like the Ray impact situation at the start of this, when we're like,
right.
What's really the point of this? I see that obviously there's a little bit of a different champ pool here, and in the first game, if they're looking at TSM losing to Team Liquid and saying, let's try and exploit Turtle as hard as we can, they go with a brand pick, and it actually worked out pretty well. I can understand that a little bit, but the second game, you're just playing Karma, I think it was, and I think Stunt obviously can play that champion and has a little bit more synergy given that he's been on the team longer. Who knows exactly what P1 was thinking over the course of this series and why they used each player.
Yeah, but as we were focused on the bot lane, let's talk about player of the game going to BIOFROST on the Thresh. Have loved seeing him on this champion anytime TSM has the opportunity or finds a comp that will work with a Thresh.